So we're going to have the moon entering the Gemini at 11. So this is a perspective of you need to go ahead and just be the moon in Gemini to manifest. Now, wherever you have Gemini in your house placements, these are going to be the areas where you need to develop ways of being mutable, changeable, versatile, and of course open-minded, and of course having many ways of communicating, many ways to adapt to changes. Now, the fixed signs and the cardinal signs going to have a little bit of time adapting to this, because fixed signs are fixated in their own ways, and cardinal signs is always coming up with new ways to do things. They don't want to adapt, they don't want to fit in, none of that. Everybody got their own time. But of course, the mutable signs are the angels. It's the whole purpose of basically carrying out the changes when it comes to the new seasons. And of course, utilizing the material, and of course, using what you have when it comes to working with these ethics. Now, if you have a Gemini moon in the first house, well, actually, if you have a Gemini ascendant, now your personality, and of course what you got personally going on in your life, you need to go ahead and get that straight and up. You need to go ahead and basically take care of yourself. You need to put yourself first. And of course, you need to go ahead and be open and curious and adaptable and changeable. And of course, communicate with the individuals that's in your life, because communication is key. You never know how communication can open doors for you when it comes to your personal life. And of course, when the moon gets into Sagittarius, you'll basically get that opposition, deflection, depending on how the seeds you was planting when the moon was waxing. Now, if you got this in your second house, you basically need to go ahead and utilize your second house as in a Gemini way, having many outlets to basically be changeable and adaptable towards grounding basis, getting stubborn towards ways of being open and changeable. Try not to get too fixated in one way of doing things. Have many ways and many outlooks on basically what you're trying to basically bring into the equation. Value many ways of doing things, or many burdens and shit, in a good way. Now, if you got this in your third house, it loves being here. So you're going to be basically overthinking and communicating when it comes to your environment, your surroundings, of course, your friends, and the spectrum. So be very open towards communicating with your siblings and your neighbors and things that matter. Be very open. It can basically bring you prosperity. You never know how they're going to look back for you in many ways. Now, if you got this in your fourth house, you need to be open and adaptable and changeable towards your home and, of course, your environment. You probably have many homes. You probably have a big-ass family, too. So be aware of these energies. Be very open and, of course, committed towards communicating with your home and your family. You never know how they're going to support you in some kind of way. Now, if you got this in your fifth house, you need to be basically very open towards expressing yourself and communicating about your talents, your gifts, your creativities, of course, which you have to offer and, of course, express when it comes to the world. Now, if you got this in your sixth house, you're going to be placed into a learning situation. So you need to be basically learning how to open up towards communicating and, of course, adapting and changing towards your daily routines, or communicating about your routines and things that you do on a day-to-day basis. Try to be open up and fluid in that area, for me. Try to come up with new ways of communicating about your duties, communicating about your responsibilities, opening up, and of course being precise in that spectrum too. You already got the spectrum here with this sixth house and this third house spectrum, with this Mercury dealing with the Gemini and the Virgo spectrum. But basically, be very open and communicate. Try not to be too hard. See what this doing with this moon and Gemini right here in your seventh house. You're going to be basically getting hit with the opposing energies because you're a Sagittarius Saturn. But this is going to be a positive spectrum right here, depending on the seeds you planted when the moon was in Taurus, feel me? Now, in this house right here, you basically need to be relating towards relationships, communicationships, and of course being open and curious and adaptable and thinking, and of course interacting with individuals when it comes to the things you relate to or situations that they relate to. Be open and changeable and of course adaptable in that spectrum. And you'd be basically playing both cards in the right spectrums. With this eighth house, you basically need to be basically putting yourself into a situation of having many ways to be deep about your interactions and deep about your sexual intercourse or deep about your sexual passions, for me. Be open-minded when it comes to being curious in the spectrum right here, for me. And be private with these things. Try not to expose too much, for me. Try not to expose too much, for me. Get someone that you can basically privately relate to and everything will be at in your spectrum. Also, ninth house. You basically need to put yourself into a situation of being open and adaptable and changeable to where you can basically either use spiritual systems or use religious systems, or just utilize some form of hope or some form of experiences that you can basically be open and changeable and adaptable to in many spectrums and in many ways in this area right here. Now, when it comes to your 10th house, you need to be open and curious of having many ways to communicate about your status, your goals, your responsibilities, your duties, your obligations, and of course things that you're basically trying to commit to, long-term goals or long-term commitments. You basically need to be open and changeable and find many ways to basically get infiltrated in that area. And then when it comes to your 11th house, you should already know. You'd be very open-minded and curious and adaptable and changeable towards your associations, your groups, your acquaintances, hearing everybody out, or just finding a way to communicate with them, or socialize with them, or interact with them. And last but not least, when it comes to the 12th house right here, you need to basically come up with many ways to utilize your subconscious mechanism to communicate and, of course, interact with it, whether it's with a person, place, a thing, and, of course, communicating with the unknown. That's basically what you basically need to be doing right now, communicating with the unknown. And the unknown is what's inside of you, your God, or your golem, or however you try to utilize that spectrum. Go ahead and communicate with the unseen. Try not to basically express too much of what's going on behind closed doors with other individuals, which would be your 6th house for me. Try to keep certain things hidden when it comes to your job and shit like that. But what's going to basically help you is your job, because your job will basically be predicated towards the 6th house where you got Sagittarius at. So, in the spectrum, you utilize both, where you can create that balance, that scale, where you can walk the bridge and be able to actually adapt in many ways. And you won't basically be getting caught up into certain illusions or having certain doubts and fears when it comes to expressing yourself on how you feel when it comes to the curtains being closed.